let's start making some bedding for an antique cradle. Hi everyone, my name is Caitlin. I'm a living historian who educates other living historians by teaching old-fashioned sewing skills and copying original garments. So I recently bought a cradle, but I knew the guy who was selling this, and he's a really good furniture guy. And he had it dated between 1820 and 1840. It was a really cheap price, and I was like, if I don't get it now, I'm never going to find one for less than $100 again. I think it was like 50. Little cradle now. And what I love about it, it's hard to see on the sides. There are little hearts carved into it, one on either side, and it's adorable. So at one point it had red paint. It does not anymore. I'm probably not going to repaint it. I think I'm just going to leave it plain. And as far as using it, this would only be for a non-mobile baby. So this is for a newborn infant. And for a newborn infant, it still technically qualifies for most U.S. safety standards. The only thing I was concerned about is the fact that it has solid sides. But apparently that's not an issue. I read online that it can have solid sides, including wooden sides. And this is actually safer because it's not straight up and down. It has a gradual angle to it, so there's no way a baby could get in there and roll over to where it couldn't breathe if it got stuck in the corner or anything. So as far as that goes, it's actually pretty safe. Now by the 1840s and 1850s, they are recommended not to have the ones with the rockers because apparently it's unhealthful for babies to be rocked and it messes up their brains. At least that's what the advice books say. But we do know that there are families who continue to use rocking cradles because they are heirlooms or whatever. There are paintings in the 1870s and 1880s that show older style wicker cradles with the rockers. The reason we're doing this now is not for a baby. It's more or less because there's a possibility I may be doing an exhibit at a museum on baby things. And I thought it'd be really cool to have this on display with maybe a fake baby doll in it, dressed entirely appropriately. What I think we're going to do today, I'm going to start shoving things around. I'm starting with the Workwoman's Guide. I'm going to bring my computer hopefully to where y'all can't see it, but I can see the notes. Workwoman's Guide has directions on what should be making up a cradle or a crib or a cot. Anyway, a child's cradle or crib contains the following articles. A mattress, which should be 1 nail thick, made of ticking or holland and stuffed with wool or horsehair, particularly dry and is cool and pleasant to lie on in the summer. A bed, which should be very thin and made either of the best feathers or down. A pillow, also thin and made of down. 3 blankets of thick Welsh flannel bound round with flannel binding or worked with color worsted. 1 coverlet, of which can be procured made for the purpose, or if not, the material sold for toilet covers will answer well if it is light. A headpiece or drapery for the head, to which may be added a pair of calico sheets if the child is some months old, otherwise they are not sufficiently warm for them to lie upon. An India rubber or leathern sheet to prevent the feather bed from getting wet and the ticking decayed. So in order, that would be a mattress, and we're looking at about 2 inches to 2.5 inches thick, and it should be stuffed with wool or horsehair. The next step would be a bed or a feather bed, which would no longer be recommended today. You want a very firm mattress for a baby. Actually, by the 1850s, it is also no longer recommended to have the feather bed. In fact, even my early 1840 sources don't mention the feather bed. We are going to omit the feather bed because it is optional in this time period, so I don't feel like I'm going to need to make one, and also because I won't be using it for a baby because it is not safe. The next step would be sheets, either of linen or of calico. Workwoman's Guide says calico, so I have my cotton calico. And then other sources do say a soft linen as well. Linen is nice and cool to lie on in the summer. So because this might actually be used for very, very young infants, I'm going to make a set of linen sheets and a set of cotton sheets. Before the sheets, however, what you want is a little piece of leather that can be used because for any bathroom accidents, diapers are not exactly waterproof in this time frame. And so leakage happens, and you don't want it to go into the mattress where it's going to soil the mattress. So a little bit of leather, or it says India rubber cloth, to prevent the mattress from getting wet. And then you put it on the sheet, and then there's the pillow, which we would not recommend today. I'm going to make it for display purposes only. And that's going to be it for this month's video. We have a cradle. Let's go ahead and I guess I can put this on the floor and maybe figure out which what needs to be fixed on it. I'm going to hand stitch everything because part of this is going to be used for the 1830s and 1820s, so I don't want to do anything that's machine sewn. But it should be fairly simple to hand sew in itself, but just to show what it looks like, it's kind of heavier than it looks. So this is what we're dealing with on the inside. Beautiful piece. I've done a lead test on it. Does not have lead on it, so as far as safety goes, it's very sturdily put together. And again, for a non-mobile baby, this would be considered safe today. For a mobile baby, no, and it would not be considered safe back in the day either. So we should be able to make this fully functional for today and safe, but still fit within period parameters. Because again, as living historians, we do what they did back then as long as it is available and safe. So we're going to make sure that we're going to do this as authentic as we can, as safe as we can, with the tools and supplies that are available to us today. Okay, there's just a nail here. And one there. Okay, that should be good. I'm going to cut one piece that is the 9.5, well, we'll see, allowance is 10.5 by 33, and then I'm going to cut a top piece that is 11.5 by 34. Yes. And the shaping is going to come from the side pieces. So I'm going to cut the side pieces at an angle in the corners, and that should give me that bag line that we're going to stuff it. I think that's going to be the easiest, but also the most correct way to do this. Alright, here we are. This is my ticking. So I'm going to go 34 inches down. Okay. And then it's a stripe, so it should be easy to cut down to 11.5. That gives me a half an inch seam allowance. I could rip it, but there's a stripe, so it's going to be easy to cut. This will be the top part of the mattress. Alright, so since I'm already here, I'm going to go ahead and cut off the side bits. So let's see, I'm going to need two pieces that are that long and then two pieces that are shorter. I want it to be about a 3-inch mattress. So I need 4 inches with, counting seam allowance. I need two of them that are this size. And a nail will be 2¼ inches because I'm doing less mattresses or fewer mattresses. I'm going to make it a little bit taller to compensate. So I have to cut it in 1 inch, which is half an inch on either side really. So it's not all that much. And that should make it smaller on one side than it is the other. So now I'm going to need 33 inches down. Okay. And I need this one 10.5 inches wide. And then the other short seams need to be that 4 inches again. This. And cut it out. Easiest way to go about this is going to be sewing all the side seams together first. The most secure stitch for this would be a back stitch, and so that's what we're going to do. Alright, side seams first, and then as I'm going, I'm pinning the bottom piece to this. And I do have to leave a section open. I don't know if I should do it on the top or the bottom, probably the bottom. That way I can stuff it, and I'll just whip that piece shut, and if I ever need to unstuff it and to restuff it for whatever reason, then I'll have a section to take out that's easier to take out. Right now that I have that done, I'm gonna fold this out, stick that on there, and it should fit fairly exactly. And of course now I gotta do the same thing on the long side. Alright, I'm going to leave this side open. I'm going to go across 3 sides, this long side, a short side, and the other long side. And then we're going to come back and do the top piece, all 4 sides of the top piece. That is just about the mattress stitched together, which is nice. Trying to move along as fast as I can. Now let's find the open end. Not that end. Okay. We're going to flip it right side out. Now I gotta go get my wool so I can stuff this whole thing. Alright, so I have some wool that's washed. Not carded or anything, but it's washed. I'm just stuffing it in here. Trying to make it even and not lumpy. You know what I should do? I should go get that fake baby doll and sit on top of this and see if it like sinks in at all, to see if it's stuffed well enough. I think that's pretty good. And this is just to keep the hair or the wool and such in. But I can always take it out to fluff it out, wash it out. What I'll likely end up having to do is add more to it, because wool will compress. Alright, so I have here the leather sheet. So I'm going to try to get, there'll still be a little bit there, but its whole purpose is just to keep the mattress clean. I mean, it's definitely waterproof. So I'm going to start with probably just cutting off a little bit here. So I'm going to want this 10.5 inches wide. Ideally, I think it would be the entire length of the cradle, but I don't have a piece of leather big enough. Because again, the only thing it really needs to be, this is the length of a child. So if I put the child's bottom like right here, it's not going to go. So there's my leather sheet, my leather sheet. Put the mattress in. And then let me get that fake baby doll. Alright, so technically you'd have the baby way up there, but it's safer to have them down here. I need this to be right here. Now let's talk sheets. So I have here like white cotton calico, and so Workwoman's Guide says that crib sheets, or cradle sheets, sorry, should be 1 1/4 yards long by 1 yard wide. I have 1 yard wide here because it is 36 inches. So that's the, I am going to fold it in a little bit to give it a little bit hem, just so I don't have to see that nasty edge anymore. So we are going to hem them, but as far as length goes, I want the finished one to be 1 1/4 yards. So let's do 1 1/4 yards. A little bit of a turn under just so it looks pretty. So we're going to cut it 49 inches. And I'm going to do 2 because you usually do, you know, sheets and sets. I'm going to iron those in a bit. And then look at the linen. Alright, these are the sheets. These are actually specifically the cotton sheets. And I'm going to label them as well. It was recommended that most sheets get labeled with the family's name and then what type of sheet they are and the set number and the year they were made. And red seems to be a popular color for marking things, so we're going to go with red. And you want to mark it on the bottom of the sheet. Some folks mark it towards the middle of the sheet. I've seen some that marked it towards the left corner. I tend to prefer the left corner. It's just easier for me to stitch down. And then I'm going to use the Workwoman's Guide and their sampler on plate 1 for the alphabet to use. There's a couple of them. I'm going to use the plainest of them. Bottom right corner. This is not going to be fun. Alright, let's start from the bottom here. I'm going to mark it 25. And I'm just going to not even bother counting threads for this. I'm going to just make small little cross stitches and hope that they look even. Yeah, this is not going to be very even, but it will work. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to do the 25, and I'm going to do a 1 on top of that. For this is going to be sheet set number 1. Not that it'll be really hard to keep them, you know, separate because there's one's cotton, one's linen. And then above that, I'm going to put C for cradle. The Workwoman's Guide is just like, you can do the type of sheet. So like B for best, or F for family, or S for servants. And I had a really hard time deciding what I was going to do with that, because I was like, well, there's C for cradle, but there's also C for crib. And how do I differentiate those? Because that's different sizes of sheets. And I realized, well, once they're in the crib, they'll be in the nursery. So I'll put N for nursery, and I'll do C for cradle. So that's how I'm going to go about that. And then on top of that, I'm going to do RK for recurrence, because usually it's the master of the house who gets his initials on the sheets. I could put my initial too, but that is a whole extra initial to do work on, and I don't feel like doing that. So it's just gonna be Rhett's initial. I just have to remember that when I do the linen ones, we're not gonna mark them as set 1, we're gonna mark them as set 2. So there's the not great one. And this is the one that looks good. So now I get to start doing the linen ones. We'll go ahead and start sewing them together, and then we'll do this last. Linen sheets. These are a little bit easier to sew, and I'm looking forward to the embroidery again because I think it'll be a little bit easier. I am working on the embroidery of the linen ones, which is so much easier. My stitching got a whole lot smaller. I don't know if you can actually tell on screen. So it looks so much nicer and neater, and that's just because I'm able to count threads. But I did the exact same thing, except of course I put a 2 instead of a 1 because this is sheet set number 2. Alright, so I did make up a pillow very quickly, back stitching. This is just going to be the pillow. We're going to make a pillowcase that's separate. And this is roughly about 17, I think, by 10, maybe by 11 or 12. I don't remember at this point. I basically said, oh, this is about as plushy as I've seen the original illustrations, so I just measured this thing. I would have used this as my pillow because, let's face it, so much less work, and the feathers are already in there, so I don't have to deal with feathers in my sewing room for months. But then there's that. So I had to remake an entirely new one. But you know, when baby's not sleeping in it, totally okay with having this. Honestly, I'll probably use this in addition to my pillow because it's, yeah, see, and it just gets everywhere. This is why I really didn't want to do this. Ugh. Me breathing in feathers. There is not an easy way to do this, is there? I'm gonna have feathers on all of my projects for the next year. No, I can put some more on this side. You know, it said, you know, a thin feather pillow in the Workwoman's Guide, but all the illustrations I've ever seen of an infant's pillow, that's not what I would call a thin pillow. Now, granted, I'm looking at this through 21st century eyes, and I do often tell y'all we can't do that. So this is apparently what they mean by thin. The project's covered in feathers. The table's covered in feathers. I mean, it's down, not feathers, but... Alright. I'm going to sew this closed. It'd be nice if I got a few more of these in here so they weren't hanging around. So I cut 2 already, but I made the mistake of cutting basically another pillow. And I don't want that. I want this to be a sham. So I need the back to be slit up the middle, and then I need them to overlap a bit. Because yeah, that's still how I make shams. Most of what I'm seeing with pillows all the way up through the 19th century, they don't seem to change. It's either just like this, just a pillow, or it has like a little pillow sham that has ruffles around it. And I see lots of ruffled ones. So I figure if I'm doing lower class, I could just use this as it is, and I could put the sham over top if I wanted the pretty ruffle. I really figured that by the 19th century we'd have some fancy ways to make infant pillows and that there'd be all these patterns for them, and I can find them, but they're not for cradle, because there's a difference between an infant pillow and a cradle pillow, which I did not know before this video. So a cradle pillow is, of course, what you put in the cradle. Those, I can't seem to find very much information on. They don't seem to be made particularly fancy or fine, even when the upholstery of the cradle is very fine. They all seem to be exactly the same, at least what I can find in paintings. Infant pillows are something totally different. It's almost like we made those baby buntings from the 20th century. I don't think I have any handy, or else I'd show you. But it's essentially a baby bag, and you zipper the baby in there, and it's like a little blanket. These are the same thing, but they're earlier. So it's like it's a little rectangle on the bottom, and it has a curved top. You stuff the top, and then this is long enough to admit a baby. And there's a fold down here at the hem that folds up to like right here, and you tie it. So you lay baby on the pillow, you fold it up, and you tie baby into it. And they're usually very highly decorated. It's a later 19th century thing. So like 1860s, 1870s, 1880s, I can find these things. And they seem to morph into the baby bags or the baby buntings of the 20th century. That seems to be where they start off. And now I'm wondering, do I want one of these? This hobby makes me research some very niche things. Anyway, I now have to fold that in and sew that up. I'm choosing a whip stitch to stitch this together. And there are feathers everywhere. I should have sewn this in the sewing room so at least the feathers stayed in one area. But now they are all over the dog, they're all over the cats, they're all over the sofa. There's my thin pillow. Alright, I'm very, very slowly getting this done, but this is kind of the last step. I mean, we still got to put the pillow inside the case, but it's the last real sewing step. So I'm just back stitching away. So there is a ruffle in here. So it's, I mean, it doesn't really matter because there's no right or wrong side to this fabric, but you know, right side, and then right side up, wrong side up, wrong side up. I did try to evenly gather it all the way around. I don't know if I did a great job. Alright, here we are. So I'm going to sit over here and put it all together. So I already folded the cotton sheets because we're not going to put 2 pairs of sheets on here. So I'm going to put the linen ones on. Okay, they're a little bit wrinkly, but I don't think it was that important. Yeah, I'm going to set a whole bunch of books on this, and that way hopefully it'll push the wool down a little bit. I am going to do this a little bit further down. There we go. Pillow. And the case. Yeah, that looks actually very... It's always surprised me when I see pictures of cribs or cradles in the 19th century how big the pillows are. They're like much bigger than the cradle itself, and they're like folded back. So that's actually a really good size for this particular cradle. But yeah, there it is moved down. So you can see how big it is, which is very period. But again, but again, I won't be using this for use for a child. It'll literally just be for display. Speaking of use for a child, I guess I can grab the baby doll. Does not have a petticoat on. I think it's just, it has a diaper on for some reason. Oh, because I was filming diapering and stuff. So yeah, it has a diaper and no other underpinnings. But yeah, now we know why they were so long. This is actually the shortest dress that I have, but it's still... But yeah, there's our little cradle. So this is month 1 of Cradle. We will be seeing Cradle again for the next couple months because we're going to do the upper bedding. And then we get to move on to bigger baby stuff. But that's about it for today. If you've enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe to the channel, click that little bell notification so you're notified anytime I upload a new video. And as always, have a fantastic week, and I'll see you back here in the next video.